I'm Raghida Dargham, columnist with Al Hayat and founder of Beirut Institute. And Governor, I wanted to ask you about the mullah thing that you mentioned. If I understand you correctly, you said doesn't matter who would come out in the elections in February in Iran because it will be another mullah, moderate or conservative. So what will you do about Iran's ambitions, regional ambitions, particularly after lifting the sanctions and particularly after what we see as a win or is seen as a win for Iran, Russia, Hezbollah, and the regime in Damascus? What will you do about Syria?
Thank you. First of all, the notion of mullahs not going quietly in the night is just a term that if you believe that if you make unilateral concessions that somehow it'll be a transformative event, there's nothing in history that suggests that. People make changes when they have no other options. And by empowering the Iranian regime and thinking that somehow the differences that exist, which they clearly do exist inside of Iran, are enough to be transformative, I think is naive beyond belief. I just think that that is the wrong approach. So, and we'll see that play out. In fact, after the agreement, think about what's happened. After the agreement signed and we patted ourselves on the back and it was negotiated in a way that it wasn't a treaty and now it's moving forward. We've seen Iran twice now test long and medium range missile capability against the sanctions that have been imposed. We've seen more imprisonment, more executions. We've seen their leaders continue the death to Israel, death to America chants almost every week. We've seen a more aggressive Iran as it relates to support for the Shia militia in Iraq. The support for Hezbollah has become stronger. They've doubled down on it. They've actually exported the Quds forces are in Syria right now, and Soleimani against U.S. sanctions, I think it was within a week of the agreement being signed, is off to Moscow. And surprisingly, in a couple of weeks after that, the Russians do this rearguard action to establish a military presence that is extraordinarily strong in Syria. They have taken advantage of us each and every step along the way. And so I don't expect there to be any changes in the policies, irrespective of what the February election looks like. I think you're going to see this theocracy still suppress its people and have as its organizing principle to continue to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. So going forward, we have to confront those ambitions, made harder, as you said, by the $100 billion. We confront it by reestablishing sanctions wherever possible. We confront it by reestablishing a stronger relationship with Israel. They may not think that we're serious, although they will over time. They certainly think that Israel is serious. And so two substantive acts would be, one, symbolic, move the embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Two, if it's not already done, reauthorize the technology agreement that gives Israel certainty that they will have technological advantage of any of the threats that they face in the Middle East. And then we need to engage in a strategy to deal with ISIS and Assad. This has been made much more complicated by this Iranian agreement. This has not helped us. It's made it more difficult. So this is not an easy thing to do, but this is where, if you look at where the threats are, and there's a long list, the 3 o'clock in the morning kind of wake up in the cold sweat list, I would say the convergence of an aggressive Iran in the region and ISIS are the two threats that we have to deal with. And from day one, we have to confront those ambitions. The agreement itself cannot be complied with. We have to reestablish a different relationship that is global in our policies as it relates to Iran. The fallacy of saying, well, we're just going to deal with the nuclear program and not deal with all the other elements that are as destabilizing as the nuclear agreement is just the wrong way to go.
We have time for one more.